Hello, Year 1, and welcome to your Friday, the 5th of February science lesson. Today, you can see our learning intention is to identify and compare common fish and amphibians. So we've looked at mammals, we've looked at birds and reptiles, and now we're going to be looking at fish and amphibians. Remember, this is all to do with our lovely working scientifically wheel and looking at the kind of classifying and organizing skill. We're looking at organising and classifying these animals. So today we're going to be focusing in on fish and amphibians. Now, always on a Friday in our science lessons, we start with an Explorify starter. So today it is another odd one out. So what I want you to do is look closely at these three pictures that are on your screen now down at the bottom. Have a little look at what you can see, and then I want you to find the odd one out. Remember, with this, there's no real right or wrong answer. So it's down to what you think. And it links beautifully to our reading skill of explain. So I want you to explain your answer. I think this one is the odd one out because that's our lovely explaining word. See if you can be a brave scientist and explain to me which one you think is the odd one out. So pause your video now and have a look. Okay, team, I hope you had a lovely discussion about which one you think is the odd one out. Now, remember, there's no right or wrong answer. You could have said the human in the middle, or the boy, is the odd one out because he's a human and the rest are not. They are animals. One is a fish and one is an insect. Okay, you could have said that this bug is the odd one out because we can't really see his eyes, can we? We don't really know where the eyes are. They might be in the antennae, they might be here, but we can very clearly see the boy's eyes and we can see the fish eye. You may have said that the fish is the odd one out because the fish lives in water and the boy and the insect do not. You may have come up with another brilliant idea. Okay, if you have come up with another brilliant idea, maybe you could write it down, or you could get mum, dad, someone at home to send it in an email form for us. So today we're going to be looking at fish and we're going to be looking at amphibians. Now, if you were in school, I would ask you to get your whiteboards out and I'd ask you to draw what you think a fish looks like and draw what you think an amphibian looks like. But what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to do this at home on a scrap piece of paper. So draw what you think a fish looks like and draw what you think an amphibian looks like. Now, amphibian is a very tricky word. There it is there. I've underlined it for you and I'll put it in red. You may not have heard of that word before, an amphibian, but you may have heard of it before. Have a go. You've got 2 minutes now. I'll pause the video. Have a go at drawing what you think a fish looks like and what you think an amphibian looks like. And then we're going to find out a little bit more about both of those. Okay, excellent. I hope you have all had a chance to draw what you think a fish looks like and what you think an amphibian looks like. We're going to learn a little bit more about these groups of animals now. So we're going to be looking at fish and we're going to be looking at amphibians. So on the left here, we've got, is this a fish or an amphibian? What do you think? Looking at your picture, what do you think? This is a fish, absolutely. And then on this side, we have our amphibian. Okay, how do they compare to what you guys drew? Are they pretty close? Don't panic if they're not. Okay, so a fish is an animal that lives in water and it is an animal that can breathe underwater. That's very important, like a goldfish. Okay, an amphibian starts its life in water, but then spends most of its life on the land, like a frog. So it starts off in the water, but it then moves and lives on the land. So this got me thinking, do you think a killer whale is a fish? Now, lots of you know that a killer whale is one of my favourite animals. Okay, but is it a fish? Remember, looking back at that definition of a fish is an animal that lives in water and can breathe underwater like a goldfish. Do you think a killer whale is a fish? Wow. Unfortunately, a killer whale cannot breathe underwater. It has to come up to the top and it blows air out, and it has to breathe in more air. It's actually a mammal. I did say to you a couple of lessons ago, it can be very, very confusing sorting animals, can't it? Okay, so now we're going to have a little look at some fish and some amphibians. So this is called a perch. It is a freshwater fish, and it means it lives in rivers and lakes. Saltwater fish live in the sea. So if you've ever been to the seaside, the water there is a little bit different to the water that we have in rivers and lakes. Rivers and lakes is kind of fresh water, not fresh enough to drink, but it's still called fresh water. And if you've been to the seaside, that is salt water. You might have been in the sea before and tasted it and think, ugh, that tastes disgusting. That's salt water. Then you've got, this is a pike, which is another type of fish. It's another freshwater fish, and they live in canals, lakes, and slow-flowing rivers. And you can see some of the kind of key features of a fish. I'm kind of showing you them now. I'm pointing them out to you. Okay. It says here, fish have got gills and fins. Those are the key features I was just pointing out to you. These are called fins, and they help the fish to maneuver or move through the water. And they have gills, which are usually up here by their eye, and that helps them to be able to breathe underwater, which is a very, very special skill. Now let's look at some amphibians. This is a common frog, and it's found in ponds and lakes, and this is a newt. Kind of looks like a lizard, almost like our reptiles from last week. And it says newts live in ponds and at the edges of lakes. Maybe you've seen some fish in the wild or at a zoo, and maybe you've seen some amphibians too. Water is very important for both of these animals. Fish live in water their whole lives, but remember that amphibians spend time on land. They are born in the water, they start off in the water, and then they move onto land, like a frog. Both animals are vertebrates, which means they have backbones. So what you think back to our birds, our reptiles, and our mammals, is there anything similar that fish have in common? I'll give you a clue. It might be something to do with that bold word, vertebrates. Excellent. So all of those animals have vertebrates, which means they have a backbone. Birds have a backbone, reptiles do, and so do mammals. So there's lots and lots of crossover between these groups. Do fish and amphibians lay eggs? I want you to give me a thumbs up if you think, yes, I think that fish lay eggs. I think that amphibians lay eggs. Give me a thumb down if you think, no, fish don't lay eggs, amphibians don't lay eggs. Let's find out. Yes, they lay eggs in the water. Their eggs don't look like birds' eggs, though, do they? So here we have an amphibian. We have a frog. And you can see all of these black dots that kind of look like jelly eyeballs. They look a bit weird, don't they? But there's hundreds of eggs there, and this is called frog spawn. Have you ever seen that before in a pond? So they do lay eggs. So do fish as well, and it says newly hatched fish are called larvae. Then they become fry. Newly hatched frogs are called tadpoles. They both breathe using gills. Remember, gills are the things that help them. They're on the sides of the fish by their head, and it helps them to breathe underwater. And you can see here are the larvae that become fry, and here are the newly hatched frogs that are called tadpoles. And they're both breathing underwater. They change a lot as they grow, and you can see them growing here. That's what they used to look like. They're kind of see-through here, aren't they? You can see they're vertebrate. And now this is them when they are a juvenile. So that means they're growing up. suppose you'd say they're like a teenager. And here they are growing up. There's the fish growing up into a juvenile. And this frog is now a froglet. Froglets now spend time on land. And you can see this froglet is exploring over some rocks. So today we're going to look at life cycles of these animals. Have you ever heard those words before, life cycle? Okay, well, if you haven't, don't panic. A life cycle is a series of stages a living thing goes through during its life. All plants and animals go through life cycles. So what it means is, and we have here a kind of caterpillar or a butterfly. So the butterfly starts off here as a kind of larvae, then it turns into a caterpillar, then it goes into a cocoon and it turns into a butterfly. Everything goes through a life cycle. Even we have been through a life cycle. We're going through a life cycle. And you guys are on one of the first steps in a life cycle. First, we are born as babies, then we get older, and you guys are getting older now, aren't you? You're 5 or 6 years old. You'll carry on getting older and older and older until we get much older, and then eventually we will get super old, and then that life cycle will complete. So here are some life cycles that we're going to look at, and you've got here the kind of breakdown. We've got pike hatch from eggs about 2 weeks after they are laid, and here's what the egg will look like, and inside you will have a fish, a little tiny fish. When they are first hatched, they are called larvae. Okay, and there they are, larvae. There they are, and that's what it looks like. Remember, that's a kind of see-through bit. When they start to eat insects and they're starting to grow up, they're called fry. And this is what a fry looks like. A male pike, which is a type of fish, grow to be 85 centimeters long. Here's my ruler. Okay, my ruler is 30 centimeters long. So it is nearly 3 times that size, which is very big, isn't it? Female pike can grow to be 1 meter 40 centimeters long. That is 140 centimeters. That's very long, isn't it? Now, frogs are hatched from frog spawn. Remember, they look like the little jelly eyeballs. When they are first hatched, they are called tadpoles, and this is what a tadpole will look like. After a few weeks, they grow back legs and they start to grow front legs very, very quickly, and their tail begins to disappear. After 12 to 16 weeks, they have grown into a frog. Remember, they turn into a froglet first. Okay, so here is that information put into a life cycle. Now remember, a cycle, it always reminds me of a bicycle wheel, and a bicycle wheel is a circle. So we like to kind of arrange them in circles. So you can see here, we start off with our frog spawn for a frog. It turns into a tadpole, which turns into a froglet, which turns into a frog. And then they will have more babies, and then the cycle will keep on going. Okay, let's look at this one now. This is the life cycle of a fish. This is a pike. So they will have an egg, and inside is the tiny baby pike. It will turn into a larvae, then it will turn into a fry, then it will turn into a fish, and the life cycle will repeat itself. Very exciting. So what I would like you to do today for your activity is I would like you to research and create your own fish life cycle, or you can choose to create your own amphibian life cycle. So you can choose a fish, or you can choose an amphibian. I'm going to put some links in the description below. One is to a link on fish life cycles and loads of inspiration for you. And one is to the life cycle of amphibians and lots of inspiration for you there as well. So pause the video here and follow one of those links, decide whether you want to do a fish or an amphibian, and you're going to draw that cycle. Remember, a bicycle wheel, a circle. You can illustrate it, you can draw pictures, you can label it, you can make it beautiful and colourful, and you can choose what fish you want to do or choose what amphibian you want to do. Once you've done that, team, there is an extension activity for those of you that would like an extra challenge, and this one is optional. It is up to you. So this says, use the life cycle sheet to help you answer my questions. So I've got questions like, what are frogs' eggs called? So you have to look back at the life cycle of the amphibian, the frog. They are called frog spawn. There's the eggs. Do tadpoles have tails? Or look back at the tadpole. Yes, they do. What does a fry look like? Look back for the fry. There it is. Can you draw that picture in there? Keep going through the rest of the questions. Do fish and amphibians lay eggs? What does a frog look like? Do fish lay eggs? What is a fish called after it hatches? Do fish and tadpoles have tails? Name one thing that is the same in both of these life cycles, and name one thing that is different in these life cycles. And use this worksheet here to help you. So you can pause the video and you can have a go at answering those very quick questions. Now, remember I said this activity is optional. I would just love to see you creating your own life cycle. I hope you enjoy this science activity. You guys are fantastic scientists, and I hope you have a lovely weekend.